Good evening. Today is Tuesday, August 26th, and the time is 6:30 p.m., and I would like to call this regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Copeland.
Here.
Webb.
Here.
Stiegel.
Here.
Onken.
Here.
Caliphate.
Here.
Hauk.
Here.
Serrato.
Here.
Perfect. All right. Approval of minutes. Consider approval of the Planning and Zoning July 22nd, 2025 regular meeting minutes. Can I get a motion on those?
I make a motion to consider approval of planning and zoning minutes on July 22nd, 2025.
I'll second.
Who said that? Okay. We have a motion to approve the minutes from Commissioner Serrato and a second from Commissioner Webb. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, minutes are approved. Citizen comment period. The Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments from citizens early in the agenda of regular meetings. Speakers are provided with an opportunity to speak during this time period on any agenda item or any other matter concerning city business, and they must observe the 3-minute time limit. So I will open citizen comments now. Okay, seeing none, we are gonna keep rolling. Consider approval of an amendment to a previously approved conditional use permit regarding building elevation modifications for a retail development in accordance with section 53-892, districts and boundaries, subsections A7, the Goforth Road Conditional Use Overlay District, for property located at 1050 Bunton Creek Road, CUP-25-0131. Ms. Sharp.
All right, good evening, Kayla Sharp, Senior Planner. So tonight we have a conditional use permit for you. This one's a little bit different than ones you've seen in the past. This will be a revision to a previous CUP. This building has been constructed and they did not use the building materials that were approved in the previous CUP, so they're asking to amend that. So, as I said, the applicant is seeking a revision to previously approved plans for a property in the Goforth Road overlay. Just to kind of familiarize yourself with the area, this is kind of on Button Creek Road between Philomena and Dacey. The approved materials consisted primarily of stone veneer and stucco, and the requested materials consist of stucco, a wood look fiber cement paneling, and brick. So a little bit of background, the original CUP was approved in September 2023 and construction started shortly after. During the final site inspection back in April of this year, it was discovered the building materials were changed during construction and the materials and colors did not match what was approved previously. The applicant has provided a letter outlining the reasons for the change, which included cost constraints related to the higher cost of the approved materials, and a desire to better align with the aesthetics of newer developments in the area. So here are the approved renderings. The gray is, I believe, the stone, and then, or the darker gray, I should say, is the stone, and then the lighter gray is the stucco. The brownish color was like metal tubing. And then those drawings. And then here is what is currently constructed. So the darker brown is that wood look fiber cement paneling, and then stucco, and then the bottom half of the building, it's kind of hard to tell in this image, is brick. And those colored renderings. And then here are some photos of the actual building. So this is what the applicant is proposing. They're proposing to add some of the kind of metal tubing back to add a little bit more architectural detail to the front facade. That would also kind of serve as a place for signage to be located. So the building is fully constructed and the Goforth Road overlay does not have specific building material or architectural requirements. So staff is generally supportive of these revisions. In addition to the applicant's proposal to add the metal tubing back to the front facade, We are also recommending modifying the stucco, just the color of the stucco, to a little bit more of a neutral tone rather than the very kind of yellowy tone that they have on there now. So that would be, staff's recommendation would be to approve with that modification. So your options tonight are to approve as presented, approve with modifications. Those can be the staff recommended modification regarding the stucco or other recommendations as deemed appropriate by the Planning and Zoning Commission, or you can deny the revisions. And as I said, staff is recommending approval with modifications to the stucco to select a more neutral tone. So, any questions?
Who wants to begin? Volunteer.
Just a question. Personal education. We require a CUP for Goforth Overlay District.
Correct.
I don't expect that you know the history of that, but why would we have an overlay district that has no particular stipulations as to materials, for instance?
I think the intent from what we've just kind of all gathered over the years is that the intent was maybe to create some additional standards, and that just never happened. But it's also kind of a tool that the city can use to kind of get some better developments when we have a CUP requirement that comes before the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So actually, we're missing something in our own development plans. This is part of my concern is that this is near a major intersection on the east side. And it seems like if we're going to pay attention to other parts of the city, we need to pay attention to what's going on there too. It's unfortunate they never maybe completed what they meant to do regarding any standards for construction or appearance of the buildings, but nevertheless, this is a fairly visible location. And you've answered what you could for me now.
Ms. Sharp, how often do these reconsiderations for this type of reason come up?
This has been, I think, the second time in the 3.5 years I've been here. The other one was a little bit different, but a CUP revision.
Thank you.
So I understand, is the builder here to answer questions?
No, I let them know they should be here, but it does not appear that they're here tonight.
Well, that certainly doesn't look good. I'm still going to ask my question, and if there's just crickets because there's no one here to answer it, I understand. At what point did they realize that there were cost overruns, and why did they not bring it back to planning and zoning for approval?
So I'll do my best to answer it. I can't answer for them, but there was a letter from the owner provided in the backup material, and just from discussing with them. Basically, once they started construction, they looked at kind of the financial aspect of things and realized that the materials that they had permitted in the CUP and also the building permit were going to be too costly. They've done some other projects in the city that weren't in overlays, and so with those projects, they had been able to kind of make those changes in the field. They didn't realize during that because they had a CUP, they had to get approval to change the materials.
And Ms. Sharp, one more question. With option 2, approve with modifications, what are the parameters in which this commission can make recommendations? Are there certain outer bounds that's too far out of the realm of requirements to issue a CUP? Is everything on the table? What does that look like in terms of limitations on recommendations?
I think for the most part, just about anything is on the table and open for discussion. It's just ultimately going to come down to, and it's unfortunate that they're not here to kind of agree to any of those modifications here. If there is a modification requested tonight, we would have to go back and discuss with them, and if that's not something that they're able or willing to do, then it would likely end up having to come back. But generally speaking, I think anything is on the table. There might be some things that may not be feasible due to building code requirements or things like that. But unfortunately, without someone here to answer those questions, it would be a little bit hard to determine what's actually feasible from their perspective.
Thank you.
But I would have to imagine it would have to align somewhat closely with the original CUP that was provided and not above and beyond what was there originally, right?
I think generally speaking, yes, but there's also not really anything specified in the code that relates to that.
Staff, my microphone wasn't on. Any questions on this side of the dais? No? Okay, please carry on, Vice Chair.
This could have been resolved by talking with staff at some earlier point before the construction was completed.
Absolutely, yes.
So, in a respect, I don't mean to imply anything about my participation here over the years, but we're here to discuss nothing. It could have been discussed some time ago in a way that was less costly to everybody, is the point. You know, this is the second time, I guess, in 3.5 years that you've been here. And I read the letter from the applicant, and I look at everything else going on here, and I hate to say it, but it seems to be one of these situations where one might say, as they used to, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. And I don't really know what's behind this, actually. I would hate to attribute a motive to this kind of thing, but certainly they weren't playing straight up. I mean, if I had an investment like this going on, I would have at least called you guys and said, we need a change. Mill bars, for instance, I could see that going away, sure, some things like that. But, you know, I want to hear from somebody myself. If you're talking stucco, brick, and stone, my experience with those are the installation and materials are roughly all the same. So I don't get that. You'll have to forgive me. So I really don't want to know what's going on here, but I'd hate to impute a motive because neither motive I could impute would necessarily be a good one.
To add on to that, we seem to have had over the past few months a number of people that have come in here and said, people who for a living build these things and deal with the city, and said, I didn't know what my costs were. I wasn't aware that was a rule. I'm not buying that we have a bunch of like airhead builders out there that don't know what's going on. I think this was the path of least resistance, but I would agree with you.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, so because they're not here to take recommendations, like, it's reasonable to assume that any recommendation we make would just end up not being followed anyway. I mean, they came at us once with a CUP and then didn't follow it. So is there any recourse to ensure that they're gonna do what we request? Like,
I have a question before you answer because it's going to go alongside of it. Have they not been issued a CO because of this?
So currently they have and this kind of ties into my answer to Commissioner Houck's question as well. Currently they have a temporary certificate of occupancy. They have been told that until the CUP is handled, that they will not be given a full CO. And with where we're at right now, they're not in compliance with their plan, so we could revoke that CO, or the TCO is valid for 30 days. We could not extend that.
Any other questions for staff?
We're a consultative body. What are the limits of our recommendations in this particular instance? Simply the ones that are put before us?
So your options, like I said, pretty much anything's on the table for discussion. The building is constructed, so if it's something that's going to kind of alter it, where they would have to go back and revise like full building plans, I would suggest not going that route, but that's up to y'all to determine. Anything that could be kind of cosmetic, a lot of times that fiber cement panel is relatively speaking easy to swap out. Changing stucco colors easy to swap out. Things like that, that could make it align a little bit more with the original approval would be what staff would generally recommend, but it's going to be up to the commission.
Any remaining questions for staff? Okay, I don't have a question for staff, so I'm going to, I guess, lead with a motion, and then we can discuss on that if it gets seconded. I would like to make a motion to deny the revisions.
I'll second.
Yeah. So, motion on the table is to deny revisions made by myself and seconded by Commissioner Webb. My thought process behind this is they've really just kind of disrespected the process, whether intentionally or not. And I think that to allow modifications at this point, especially if we can't even talk about it with them, the point is moot. We would have to table it and have another meeting with us. So I would rather say, let's just tell them to go back to the original plan. And that also sets a precedent for other developers in Kyle. If you hear about this, I mean, you need to know what you're doing if you're going to work here. You need to respect our staff. You need to respect the people of the city. And if you come to us and say you're going to deliver one thing and you deliver something else, there's going to be consequences for that kind of behavior. So, of course, other people might have different opinions on why that would be denied, but those are my 2 cents. Is there any other discussion on that motion?
I have a question for the chair or for staff. Can they appeal this?
Yes,
And to whom?
they would appeal to the city council.
Right. So I think it's important to understand that if nothing else happens, that may be what they need to do, regardless of our vote. They need to hear it from people who can talk to them directly, not a consultative body necessarily, though we will render our decision tonight. I want to make it clear that they can appeal if they wish and talk to people with more authority than we.
Along that line, do we have the option to table this motion and this item until a future meeting, giving the developer a chance to come and present his or her case? And that allows this body to hear out the options and vet them for council. That way they have a full discussion and range of options on the table versus them hearing it for the first time from that developer. Or do we have to take one of these 3 options tonight?
I think you certainly could table it, if that's the route y'all choose to go with. I think from a staff perspective, it would be helpful to kind of know what direction y'all would be looking for so that we can talk to the owner developer and kind of, let them know, hey, this is what they're looking for. Can we work towards this? So that way, if they were to bring it back, they're ready to go. Maybe they've already made some of those adjustments, or we can just table it until they're able to attend.
Mike, are you done? Sorry.
I was going to make a recommendation to the chair that I would think that tabling this seems most prudent and asking staff to get a better understanding from the developer. What would it truly cost and why is it prohibitive to bring it back up to how the CUP was initially issued?
And along those lines, I would recommend, rather than leaving it up to a yes or no decision, they could come back with some different options of different renderings for different various designs for us to choose from, and those options be based off of what is feasible and with the least amount of constraint, so that we could have some sort of clear path forward that we agree with, and we know that it's not going to totally kill their project, because ultimately we don't want to have a vacant building with no use sitting in that particular spot either. So I think some preparation work would be advisable.
So my thoughts on this would be, if we negotiate on this and we try to find a middle ground that makes everyone happy, we're going to find ourselves back here in this position again and again. So I do think, yes, it's harsh perhaps, and I did read the letter from the applicant about the reasons for why this happened. But we have to think about the time of staff having to work through this. They're already doing it one time. Do we want to open up the door for staff to have to do this on a more frequent basis? Yeah.
And I agree with your use of the word disrespect. That would sort of uncover my feelings about motivations to some degree on the part of the applicant. This is just, I haven't quite seen anything this bad. I mean, we've talked about garage doors. To do a whole building is something else. We had a hotel come to town and ask for an extra story, and we voted to approve. The council narrowly voted to follow on that, and then the developer came back and said, oh, by the way, we'd like to switch out all the stucco for hardy plank. We went the whole building, essentially, other than the entrance. Well, we got into it with them, and they backed down. They made a choice. They didn't want to develop it any longer. So you see, some things can happen decisively if everybody's playing the game straight. And I'm not sure that that's what I'm thinking that this is, and I agree that it's disrespect. It's blowing off your time, our time, and enough said.
I don't think there's anything that's been said that first of all, I agree with all of it. I don't think there's a whole lot I could add, certainly not as politely and professionally as the rest of you added it. I'll vote no on this 100 times. The only reason I could see tabling it is I think we should table it until they show up here and say something to us. I fully believe that the reason they are not here today is because they were going to appeal the decision anyway. So why waste a Tuesday evening? So yeah, I still seconded the motion, but if we decide to table it, I'm happy to do that until they can show up.
I'm being retired. I do have some extra time on Tuesdays, and I would be more than happy to appear at the council and speak from the lectern during public comments as regards this project.
I'll join you.
Just be careful we don't reach a quorum. Is there any other discussion on the motion on the table? Okay, so let's vote. The motion is to deny the amendment to the conditional use permit. All those in favor of denying, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, so that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, receive a report and hold a discussion regarding the following. 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to read it all because you're going to tell us about it. Hello, Mr. Lutz.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. So a couple of reports to give you today. First one, we'll start with the Texas Planning Conference. That's October 22nd through 24th. Kayla did send you all emails, so please coordinate with her. We're trying to book rooms all in the same place. If you're late, you may, it sounds like that option's over, so you may get stuck with lesser than stellar accommodations if you wait too long. But drop dead deadline is September 12th. Again, if you have any issues, what days you want to leave, return, dietary restrictions, anything like that, just let her know. If you are going, we look forward to seeing you there. If you're not going, we'll see you at the next one. Next update is a Project Sahara. So some of you may have seen this. This probably came through 6-9 months ago. Some of you new folks, maybe you haven't, but this is about a 100-acre tract located 1100 East FM 150. The tract goes from 150 to County Road 158. It is located in the city's ETJ. It's currently agriculture land, but it is regulated via non-annexation agreement. So once they, if they chose to develop, they would trigger that annexation, but they're looking at moving forward with the development agreement, annexation, and a PUD zoning on this. They are proposing mixed-use development, multiple land uses, and housing types. The DAA company and the PUD is going to address building materials, development standards, utility capacity, upgrades, maintenance responsibilities, typical stuff. So some of your future zoning commission council considerations are going to be the annexation itself, the planned unit development, the development agreement, and the PID creation. So when this comes back to you, you will see a presentation that covers and touches on all 4 of those, but your votes will be limited to the PUD discussion itself. That's your sole purview on this case here. So I'm going to just quickly go through some of the renderings. This is the proposed rendering. This is Chavo Pastrano Senior Parkway that you see there, formerly known as Goforth. Again, this road is a key transportation piece to that highway or to that road network. So this will serve several areas of the community. So this is a valuable piece of our road connection network. Again, this is East Kyle. They're looking at a commercial, possibly civic hub. They're looking for a little bit more urban feel in some of their areas. We are still working on the cross sections regarding Chavo Pastrano Drive. Here's a couple of images. The concept plan there, as you can see, single family detached in yellow, single family attached or townhomes in the kind of orange. There's some multifamily and a light pink, commercial civic opportunities, and then parks, open space. There is a pretty big easement across there for transmission line, so that area will be utilized as parkland and drainage area. Kind of bisects the site adjacent to the proposed road. This is kind of a breakdown on the number of units that they'd be looking at, 330 maximum. They are looking at affordable units, 80% at 60%, and then 20% at 50. So these are more in line with Kyle's MFI versus Austin. So this is a pretty good deal. Again, parks and open space, about 10 acres, looking at about 1,500 square feet of meeting space, covered pavilion, playgrounds. So here's kind of a phasing plan and kind of what they're looking at acquiring as far as leases, who they're going to try and get in there. This is not finalized. This is just their coach looking at kind of options they would seek to have in their commercial development. Here's the multifamily, kind of some of their concept designs. Again, we have not seen any finalize those documents in the DA, but those will be coming forward. Single family concepts, townhome concepts. And then again, touched on the right of way. They'll be dedicating that 7.2 acres, be building the vibe, again, paying for infrastructure. Here's an example of the park's open space. They are utilizing low impact development for water conservation and then city infrastructure extension. So they will need to do a CCN swap with the third party water provider. That process has already commenced and that'll be going to council for consideration. So they're looking, working with staff to update all documents and then consideration and approval in P&Z and City Council. That should be coming in the next couple of months. We've got a pretty tight deadline that we're shooting for, that we're working towards, and we're going to do what we can to make that happen. So you guys will be seeing that in the future. And the applicant is here. If y'all have any questions, I can turn it over to him.
I'm just thrilled that you're here.
I was going to say real quick, put this presentation out a little bit early. This timeline has been refined. This is going to be coming back for you for consideration next month. So I did want to with our publication now, we really got this out early and on time. So that has been kind of refined. So the applicant and the owners are definitely working through that process. This will come before you next month, I think at your 23rd meeting, and then it'll proceed to council for consideration in October. So right now, that's the schedule we're looking, going towards.
And if I understand right, our sole purview on approval is for the PUD, correct?
Yes, sir.
I would love to have detail ahead of next month's meeting on the parameters of that, how that operates, all that kind of details I'm sure you're going to give us, but just as a preliminary note to understand the parameters.
Absolutely. So the PUD is zoning for sure. So it'll look at land uses, what those setbacks are going to be, amounts, quantities, all of those things will be in that, and then it'll highlight some of the phasing. So it'll definitely get some more in the specifics of this, but it should be absolutely consistent kind of with this overview of the slides that were presented tonight. And again, these are something that we're trying to do is council has talked about it. Actually, honestly, Planning and Zoning Commission saw some stuff on this, 6+ months ago as well. This is a new applicant, a new developer at the table for this project. They have kept a lot of consistencies, so it should look similar to what was being planned before, but council has looked at this with some of the DA kind of components of it, and looking at the Chevo Pastrana Parkway extensions and some of those as well. So since it was kind of forecasted or showed to council, we'd like to bring those back to Planning and Zoning Commission too, so you can see exactly kind of what council's seeing and do a forecast of what's coming up before you as a board. So thank you.
Thank you.
Do we get any input on material selections for the housing and the multifamily, or is it strictly zoning related?
Well, it is zoning related. I think if you want to share that now would be a great time. The owner and applicant's here, so if you have some ideas, I think they're all ears. I was telling him that much like council was able to share some of their concerns and ideas, I think you absolutely have the opportunity to do that as well.
Okay. When we had our meeting where we were talking about zoning code and planning and everything, one of the concerns, at least I brought up, and I don't know if anyone else shared it with me, was most of the single family developments are starting to all look exactly the same. You could kind of drive from one development to the next, and generally, especially on the east side, they all look the same. So I'm not gonna, I know cost is a big factor in it, but anything we could do to bring a little bit different character or creativity, or just feel like I'm in a different development now from the previous one I drove through to get to this one would be nice. I think some of the renderings here are very nice. At least the top 3 pictures look a little bit more unique from every other neighborhood. That's just my opinion.
Perhaps for the developer as well as for you, Mr. Lutz. Is the PUD going to be, is there going to be a performance schedule in terms of rollout of the phases?
I think there's some phasing in there that we have done for the water modeling. I don't know that there won't be any kind of 380 triggers, incentives, or penalties. I know they are looking at moving forward immediately, especially because of the road construction.
Right.
Anytime you're putting that much infrastructure cost in, you don't want to sit on a project. But I don't think right now, currently as it's drafted, there are specific triggers that phase 1 will be completed by this date.
However, there are some triggers on, and if you can go back a couple slides, maybe, Jason, they are proposing some triggers, which will be highlighted a little bit more in the DA versus the standards in the PUD that you'll be approving. But we are saying, like, hey, you can do in phase 1, the first phase of the multifamily that they're doing, plus this amount of single-family units, plus the commercial before you go to phase 2. So there will be those triggers in regards to that. And this is something that council wanted to highlight, understanding that obviously the developer has talked about needing a mix of both residential and commercial to really kind of make the mix work for the development, but understanding that they don't want the commercial to be kicked to the very last phase, the can at the very end. So this phasing schedule will be definitely highlighted in the development agreement, and then our permitting wise will associate with this as well in relation to that. But will it be super specific in the PUD? Probably not. It's more of like the standards and the setbacks and everything else with that, where the DA will really hone in on some of the phasing requirements with it.
Yeah, just the reason that we would be concerned about this is that I've sat through several hearings for PUDs, and actually the ground has never been scraped at all. They've gotten the designation and nothing ever happened. And so I'm very concerned about something in that location, especially with the road extension, that it happened in a timely way. It would be a tragedy somehow if we were left stuck with another couple of PUDs that either didn't have the proper financing to go forward, or it was just nothing to attribute to you, or just a play for, drive up the property value or something. So we like the fact you're on board with this. It's a great plan. It could be a real win-win for the city, but the performance is the issue that is very important in my view, and that's been spoken to by staff. So.
Hello, Jorge Canavati with ATX Capital, the developer of this project. I think the staff did a really good job of summarizing what we're trying to do here. Obviously, we're very incentivized to not sit on the project for long, and that's why the phasing was a key part of structuring this agreement. And really, what we're eager to do is be able to donate the 7.2 acres for the construction of Goforth Road, and that's really going to be what we're going to be mostly waiting for to be able to do anything else. The way we're structuring this agreement, we're able to start with the affordable, with a portion of the single family, and also 15,000 square feet of retail, and we're going to do that as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you.
I do have one quick question. I know when this came about, we were looking at the size of the grocer and potentially expanding it simply because that's a heavily populated area. Was that ever changed?
That's something that we're pursuing as well. We're pursuing a grocer. We've had conversations with several. I think the challenge right now is that when a grocer looks at this area, they don't see a lot of retail in the area, and that's probably what we haven't been able to get someone to actually commit to the project, but we're having some really good conversations. Nobody would love a grocer more than we would for this project, and we're going to continue to have those conversations. And our belief is that as soon as we start developing some of the retail here, it's going to allow some of the other retailers and potentially a significant grocer to be able to get on board the project. So we're going to continue to work to secure one for sure.
Awesome. I think it's an absolute must. It's not the only development over there. The grocers on the west side of town are definitely packed, so I think we could definitely use something on the east side of town.
I completely agree.
So I will say, I'll follow up a little bit on this from the city's perspective. Although we too would want a grocer, I do think the grocer was kind of a trigger item with the previous negotiations, and that specific use is not a trigger item that's being considered in this development agreement, is specific to the grocers. So the applicant has worked some other things, definitely keeping the commercial and the commercial retail the commercial square footage associated with this project, as well as they are looking at incorporating civic space too. So 3 acres of civic space that could be used for a variety of kind of honestly, governmental kind of uses was attached to this particular project as well, in addition to the 70,000 square feet of commercial. Not to limit the grocer abilities, but to have it not be a grocer requirement in this DA.
And that civic and parkland changes were, changed from the last agreement, if I understand right, to the current one potentially. Is that part of phase one, or is that to be determined as part of the overall package?
It's a little bit to be determined, but I think they too want the city to pull the trigger on the civic engagement as quickly as possible as well, because again, that would be something that would be kind of in that commercial retail, but that'll be a trigger that would be more in the DA component.
Thank you.
I have a quick 2 cents comment about the building materials and the look and feel. If you could go forward, please, one slide to the apartments, and then we can like toggle between that one and the rest of the housing types. That one. Okay. So I noticed first this slide and then the following slide. In my opinion, these buildings don't belong together. And when we think about this project and how it's being sold as an all-together, this is Project Sahara. If you live in this neighborhood, you are in whatever, Sahara, the desert, I don't know. But to me, these don't say we're a community and we belong together. And yeah, my friend lives over here, multifamily, and I'm over here in single family. They look like totally different neighborhoods to me. So I would, just 2 cents, I would say it would be great if we could find a way to make this place have a real sense of community and belonging and togetherness, just for the well-being of all the people who live there and share that space and use that area. That's
Madam Chair, I would extend beyond just the multifamily and single family, also the retail. If you can make that entire envelope feel that it fits together, that would be a sense of community in my mind as well.
sure.
And may I add to that, the one apartment model that was up here really looked rather industrial as compared to the homes, would be just, in terms of my impression visually. I haven't been there for several months, but, an excellent model for this kind of integration with variety, nevertheless, is Mueller, the Mueller development. And I don't know if you've been there or familiar with that, but, just having that conceptually or some, mental pictures as you go forward developing this might be a real help.
Yeah, these are conceptual images, but for next time we're here, we'll spend some time putting a little bit more information together to speak to that, how we plan on integrating all that. But I think these are really good suggestions.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so I was looking at that list of all the businesses that were going to be in the commercial district, and I know this isn't, that you were looking into maybe putting into
Please,
that.
and Jorge, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those are hopes and dreams and potential partners to go in there. Absolutely, no one's signed on the dotted line to move in to this development yet. So those are projects that Retail Coach, they're kind of they're a broker that helps find homes for retail establishments, was generally saying this would be some great options that might be feasible in this area. I don't think he's got anyone assigned yet for
I wasn't
for
trying to
this.
suggest he did. My problem is that I don't want to see, and I know this really isn't our purview, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. This town, in my opinion, has a bit of an issue with chain fatigue, right? We've got nothing but chains around here for miles. There's only a few local joints that are struggling along against all these chains. I would love to see at least a few locally owned businesses in that commercial district. That's just a personal opinion maybe,
Yeah.
but I would love to see that.
Okay, that's good to know. I think it's for this exercise. We went with the name brand, so that's a little bit easier to try to go after at this point. But we're definitely we would love to. I think that would add a lot of character to the neighborhood, and we would love that as well. I think we're good. Thank you.
All right, last but not least, have a few slides on our continuing training. So we did a training a couple of months back, kind of covered intro, purview, your role, where we're sitting. And so today we're going to focus on the tools utilized by city staff and yourself. So these tools are development agreements, comp plans, zoning, planned unit developments, and overlay districts. Most of you are familiar with those terms. Just kind of wanted to touch base on what they actually are and how they work together. So development agreement, this is a contractual agreement. This is done through city council. It's typically not a P&Z tool, but it is essential for coordinating all of the development. Again, when we're talking annexation timelines, if we're talking about responsibilities for utility upgrades, additional LUEs, or building materials, this is the tool that gets that done. So again, projects descriptions, responsibilities, it will cover duration, it may have some financial provisions, utilities, zoning, land use. You'll see the permitted uses. We generally include a prohibited use chart of businesses or type land uses we don't think are viable for that development. Again, they're important for providing that legal clarity. The parties can assess and manage their risk, ensure the project complies with zoning regulations, provides essential infrastructure, and creates the opportunity to kind of develop a unique development that maybe a city's zoning ordinance doesn't fully allow or comprehend. Second one is comprehensive plans. So what is a comprehensive plan? Most of y'all know we just adopted one recently, and y'all got to spend several of your nights working through those issues. So it's just basically a long-range plan. It's our goals, strategies, the vision of the city. It outlines where we think development should occur, how, and how that should feel. It looks at our community's current conditions, our needs, and then again, where do we want to go in the future? So it can also shape your physical environment, your economic environment, location of roads. So all of those things are part of that comprehensive plan. The key elements, though, that every comp plan must have is future land use map. That's where we talk about what we think that area is going to develop. Transportation thoroughfare, that's another one. We want to make sure that wherever this growth is, that we have the infrastructure to support movement of people and goods. Looks also at public facilities. So as the city begins to grow, are there additional sites you need for school districts, high schools, junior highs, annex fire stations, annex police stations, things of that nature. And then obviously the development regulations. Usually the PUD standards are attached as an exhibit into those DAs so that they're one and the same, and then we can go back and make sure they're married up. And then the action plans, those are listed, identified steps to ensure that your comp plan is going through. So if you look back at the back of our comprehensive plan, you'll see kind of tier 1, phase 2, phase 3 of things that you need to do to make sure that your comp plan is being enacted effectively. So another one is zoning. That's what we do every day. Y'all are pretty experts at this. Basically just dividing our district into cities, residential, commercial. Where these districts go, we regulate heights, setbacks, impervious cover. All of those can be manipulated or changed, modified, depending on how you want that development to go. What regulations can zoning address? I just kind of touched on those. Again, single family, multifamily, townhome versus duplex, setbacks, density is a big one, especially in communities that have to look about providing water, wastewater. We always want to analyze the densities of each development, make sure our infrastructure can handle that. An additional part of any zoning is the PUD. These are zoning designations or categories that allow us to create kind of unique developments. They may take in mixed uses, residential, commercial. The one we saw, Sahara, is an example of that. If it was straight zoning, you would be looking at one type. And so it often separates those land uses. It's very flexible urban approach. It can reduce setbacks as long as you're meeting fire life safety. Can create different heights, different things of that nature, additional parkland. It's very similar to an overlay district, but it is actually its own unique zoning district. So a couple of ways we do that is some folks may pick a base district, say, hey, we like the uses allowed in RS, but we want to modify it in this way, whether it's additional signs, whether it's additional density, additional uses. Overlay districts are something we see a lot. We have several in the city. As Mr. Stiegel pointed out, some have additional regulations in them, some do not. So with our code rewrite, we are going to start looking at those kind of vacant areas and see if we have any regs that we can put in there to provide a little bit more guidance for the developers as they go into some of those overlays. However, the difference is this overlay will sit on top of a district. So you could have a property that was zoned, it got brought in, now it's a PUD, has its unique zoning, but there's still some additional overlays that come in on top of that. So our I-35 overlay is a good example. We have several PUDs that are along that area. If you remember a couple of our projects, they were vested under certain PUD requirements. They were allowed to do this, this, and this, but the overlay had more stringent standards, whether it's landscaping, sidewalk connectivity, parking ratios, things of that nature. So those are in addition to whatever a PUD might have. So how do they all work together? So really a development is contemplated. The first step is to evaluate the comprehensive plan. Is it meeting that plan? Is it meeting the long-range vision? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're a hybrid of what's there now and what it's going to be. Kind of just depends on the specific development. If the comp plan is in alignment, then you can kind of move forward and develop it. If it's not in alignment, then you may have to look at either amending your comp plan if it's drastically off. Like say the whole area calls for single family and now you want to put multifamily there. That may be cause you to go back and look at that comp plan. No comp plan is perfect. There's always areas that need to be updated, whether it's through infrastructure changes throughout the years, development pattern changes. You want to make sure you're constantly looking at that to make sure your comp plan is still in alignment and still viable with kind of current trends. Let's see. Again, if they can't meet, we go through and look at maybe amendment, whether staff recommends it or approval or denial, kind of depends on the development. We also set out kind of the base guidelines for the PUD. So if we know the comp plan is calling for a certain building typology, that may be something that we put into the development agreement or the PUD or any type of document that we're looking at to ensure that we're trying to meet as many of those aspects as we can. Once they're all drafted, they're scheduled for consideration before P&Z and then recommendation to council. So as we do it here, when we present these, we're going to include everything. If there's a PID, if there's a PUD, if there's a DA, if there's a 380 agreement, we will touch on all of those options, let you know what those are so that you can see how the whole project works together. But your purview may only be the PUD itself and not the DA or those other documents. So I know there's a lot of information. I did attach some of the prior training slides for anybody that didn't attend the last one. So I'll just turn it over if y'all have any questions.
Anybody have a question? You did such a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, we have a comment from Vice Chair Siegel.
It's to the other commissioners that in the time I've been here, we have to keep in mind with the comp plan that we have, which is not that old, to keep that in mind as this city gets built out and be very thoughtful about what we're not just doing today, but how this is going to impact the future. The reason I brought up the PUD request is because we've got a lot of them sitting around town. I can name some. Well, one no longer has been built out. It was approved in 2011 and built out in 2024 with something that would never be built out today. We wouldn't think of looking at it today. Several of the more contentious situations that have arisen with residential development around town with PIDs and PUDs and HOA costs and why aren't we in the city and every other kind of complaint there is, really get to the root of decision making in 2015 and 16. And the whole point of this is that we've got to think ahead and equip others to work with what we have left behind. That we haven't created problems that somebody else has got to figure out in 10 or 15 years. This is a very big thing for me. I know we have only some influence over that, but when we make our decisions, even as we did tonight on that CUP, I think we need to be clear about why we're doing that. It's not just that failure of respect, it's consistency and respect for an entire process of planning and development of the whole city. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. There are very good reasons to look at this and to really take it under advisement. In my way, in the state law, we're responsible for the general health, welfare, and general welfare, health, and safety of the community, like most bodies of this kind. But, when we get down to particulars, we're living in Kyle, Texas, and I think it's a responsibility that we have to use all the tools we have, all the gifts that we have to really do a good job with this. And I think it's quite meaningful, not just for us to participate, but for the community members. I've been up here long enough to see what the concerns and complaints are, and many of them are valid and useful, and I think we need to learn from them and from our own experience sitting up here in the dais.
With that item, do the comp plans and the PUDs sunset?
No, sir. PUDs can be amended long-term, so if a development sits or there's market changes or other opportunities present themselves, maybe it was a use that was not contemplated that they didn't think they could get, and then now they want to, do that, we can amend those. Comp plans go through until they are amended or adopted, new one adopted, so they do not sunset, no, sir. And I don't know if I mentioned it, it is not required for a city to have a comprehensive plan, but if you do have one, your zoning decisions and your comp plans should be married and be in alignment, which is why generally if we look at a development and it's not alignment, we may propose a comp plan amendment to kind of look at that. Not every development may hit all aspects of a comp plan, just depending on how it's laid out, but we try and match it up as best as possible.
It doesn't appear that there are any other questions for you at this time.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we have concluded all of the business items on our agenda today. So we are going to be adjourned at 6:20. My watch and that watch are not the same, and now there's no time on there. What time is it? 7:26.